was a hypo, and I'm like, welcome to Comics League Movie Night. I am Jared, and I am here with Robert. What's up, brother? Yeah, so we're talking about Assassin's
Not bad.
Creed.
I want to make this clear. Not a bad meh, just a boring meh.
Well, here's the problem with it. It dramatically overcomplicates its plot. Like, I'm like, what?
Yeah, but okay. First of all, what are we talking about?
We're talking about Assassin's Creed, the movie.
And I think funny thing is, this came out during a year when you really look at the video game movies, they weren't bad per se.
Yeah,
You had a lot of the companies involved that made the games directly involved. You had a lot of them. They were, some of them were at least high quality, or they were true to the lore, but they just came out like, what happened?
Yeah, I mean, because here's the thing about Assassin's Creed in terms of like gaming movies, because I've seen my fair share of video game movies. Short of Sonic and maybe Warcraft, this one does keep pretty close to like what the games are like.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm looking right back right now, and yeah, you had Assassin's Creed, Warcraft, Hitman.
Oh yeah, that one was actually pretty good. I like
Need for Speed. Oh no,
Mm.
wait, that was 2014, and Hitman was 2015.
I used to think that that like Need for Speed and Fast and the Furious were the same thing.
Yeah,
Because they kind of sometimes seem like that.
definitely.
But I mean, okay, so here's the thing. When I first saw this movie, that was before I was like playing the game. So there was that to bring that up. And the thing is, see, here's the quandary of this movie. It explains, it breaks it a lot down really well, but it also dramatically overcomplicates and like does stuff where I'm like, how does that work?
And it kind of brings finality to stuff the games have been building up to.
Yeah, because here's the thing. Here's an example of when it overcomplicates things. So there's the part where when we first see when Callum or the main protagonist
Badbender
assumes like takes up the mantle of an assassin. He sees like images of all the past assassins, and I go, how does that work? I'm like, what?
because it's supposed to be part. I think we're meant to imply that that he is sharing a bloodline that's connected to multiple assassins.
Or maybe it's like the bleed or something like that. Maybe the bleed through. But I'm like, yeah, I know, but in the games, that's not how that works, I don't think. And that's just how like Desmond can like move like an assassin, right?
Okay, basically, it's like this. The way it always worked in the games is that they needed to select someone that was of the bloodline of a particular assassin that they need.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently now we do have Ezio takes place in the same time. It takes place in the same time as Assassin's Creed 2.
Mm-hmm.
So that actually explains what.
Didn't they retcon away that you don't necessarily need the bloodline a person of the bloodline anymore?
I don't think it's been retconned so much of the fact that we don't have a character playing as being playable anymore.
Because that's how, like in Odyssey, you could have the protagonist, and then you have like Cassandra or Alexios.
Again, I think that's more based off of you're the player character going into it. So it depends on what you select. So rather than trying to customize having a Desmond, you're having the player character be it. So you don't need to go into that detail anymore.
No, I'm just saying how the player character. Because here's the thing. I'm not talking about Black Flag. I'm talking about like Odyssey, where like I forget the main character's name in that. Oh, Layla, how she can like experience the memories of like let's say in canon Cassandra. Then you
Again, I don't know. They might have retconned it. They might have changed the animus.
Which I'm like, that's kind of. I mean, I don't mind it, so I'm like, it's not really anything really that bad. But it's like, even with this, so in this movie, it's basically this. So
they changed how the animus looked to make it more dynamic. Because originally they did not want it to be like the Matrix, where you're having the wires and all that. But when they saw it in the movie and they realized, yeah, if we do what we usually did, it's gonna be boring.
Yeah, because essentially, so the way the Animus works in the games is that you lie down in a bed, essentially.
Boring.
There's like all these
Not saying you couldn't make it work. Not saying you couldn't make it work.
Yeah, but it would still be kind of boring. In the movie, and they kind of explain this by like maybe this is a less advanced version of the Animus that's like kind of like a prototype, where it's like it's an arm that like attaches to your hips and a needle that goes into your brain essentially,
and then you move up and down with it.
Actually move and stuff. And I'm like, okay, that's really cool, and it leads to some really cool shots and stuff.
Especially when trying, and I would say, I do like how they treat the leap of fate as it's not the first thing you do; it's something you build up to.
And how it kind of screws with the machine when he does do it, and I'm like,
that's okay. Which, to be fair, that could be a way of explaining how you're able to activate the map. It's screwing with the Animus. Like technically, you shouldn't figure out all this stuff when you do the leap.
Which, yeah, but it's like the issue that I'm kind of seeing with it is, I mean, then it doesn't explain, like, again, all those assassins and stuff. You see, they needed an explanation for that.
Yeah, they did. And I think this was meant to be, again, the start of a trilogy that never happened.
Yeah, exactly. Because part of it is like this movie didn't it didn't profit. It actually lost money because it was one of those occasions where it had to make double its budget because of the marketing, and it didn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like that's why that didn't happen. And this was, see, I feel like the problem is I see the potential here, and it could have been really big for the game and the movie and such. But it's like then all of a sudden they just like ridiculously screw this up, and I'm like, it's a relatively simple premise. How do you screw this up?
And like I said, the fact is they've been building up to dealing with the Templar, especially Rickon. Rickon had been around since the earlier game, since at least the first game.
Mm-hmm.
He was at least mentioned in the first game and all that. And then here, he's yes, it's Jeremy Irons, and he's, let's be honest, spoiler alert, obviously, he's killed off at the end, and you were like, wait, that's it?
Well, and it's probably like there'll be other people. I mean, that's the way the lore book explains it. He was just a leader of like one division of the Templar.
But the fact that you built him up in the games.
Yeah, that's the thing. If this was supposed to be the end story of the franchise, that would be one thing.
Or at least like, this is something that should have been a game. The fact that they decided, let's tell it in the movie still bothers me.
Yeah, because if they had made it as a game and then like expanded the story a little bit, then you wouldn't have to worry about skipping steps and all that stuff.
I will say this though. If there's one advantage I will give the recent games, it's that they're more focusing on the history of the Assassins and Templars war and less dealing with the Apple of Eden.
Yeah, which that's a little bit more grounded, and it's a way for people to like wrap their minds around.
Yeah, like with Shadow. The fact that, I mean, you still haven't played that, right?
No, I haven't. I plan to look down the line, so go ahead.
It's more of a side story about, like it's less to do directly with the Assassins and the Templars war, and more of the fact that it's gone global.
So it's kind of like Odyssey in that way, where it's like it's not necessarily doing Assassins Templars. It kind of does something like that with the cult, but still.
Yeah. In this case, I mean, yes, the Templars and the Assassins are the driving force behind everything. The Brotherhood and the Templar are the driving force behind it all. But the Templar are they're just the greater scope manipulating everything. And then by the time we find out about them, the game ends. We'll have to find out in DLC.
Yeah, I know, but it's like, so by the way, so what do you think? I want to ask you this. I know this is turning into a general Assassin's Creed discussion, which
that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah. The movie is not that complicated. What do you think of like the RPG versus the more classic gameplay?
Both work.
I'm like, yeah, I think as much as I love Odyssey, it kind of screwed up a little bit because here's the thing. Each progressive level would like jump 2 levels or like 3 levels, so you had to do everything.
It's the slowing downness of it that bothers me.
Yeah, exactly. Which here's the thing. Now that I have completed the game a couple of times and leveled up Cassandra, I just go through the game. I don't have to wait anymore because it's like I'm leveled enough to do this.
Yep. I will say this though. I am not a fan that you don't get the proper. I rephrase that. I didn't say I annoy it. I would say this though, but once you get the assassin outfit, one thing I do like is you can upgrade the outfits.
Yeah, exactly.
I love how you can actually upgrade the outfits because that way you're not stuck having to get rid of the outfit.
Well, even on that, in like Odyssey, you can take the visual look of the outfit and apply it to any piece of gear.
Oh no, I get that, but I'm just saying the fact that you can upgrade it so it can match your level, so you don't have to feel like, oh, I gotta drop it.
Yeah, because it's like if you have this really dope piece of armor, then you will. That was my problem.
Or in the case of the assassin, you actually have the proper assassin garb.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That was my problem with like Ghost Recon Breakpoint because that's when they went very RPG. And the problem is you would like take out a bunch of enemies and then immediately have to grab their gun because it's like that's a higher level gun than yours. And I'm like, who thought this was a good idea?
Yeah.
Plus having to constantly equip gear dramatically screws with the pace of the game. So
exactly. But I will say this though. Can I say my biggest problem with Shadows?
Yeah, go ahead.
And I think this might apply to Odyssey as well. Too big of a sandbox.
A little bit.
Especially with Shadow, dude. Trust me, Shadow is like there's so much areas that have nothing.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, what?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, okay, why does this exist?
Yeah, why is this so huge?
And I get it because like you want to go through Japan or you want to go through Greece, but I'm like, can you put more in it?
Yeah, can you fill more in it? It's like there's a lot of dead area.
Mm-hmm. At least in Odyssey.
Yeah. Go ahead.
What I liked about Odyssey is that even you could kind of affect the world if you like fought for Sparta or Athens, and then you could have these big battles. I did dig that, but it's like the problem with that is like it didn't really affect that much of the world beyond like whose flag is up in this particular region.
Oh, and one thing I did snicker at, but I still kind of groan at, the romances amount to nothing because you could just pair up with everyone. They never interact with anyone. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, you barely. There are some romances where you never even see the person anymore outside that quest, and I'm like, what's the point of? At least in Mass Effect, your romances follow you.
You're locked in.
Yeah, they're companions. I'm like, what are you talking about here?
But I would say though, but I do still chuckle at it. Naue is the one who has the steamier romance scenes. Like she's the one who's more likely to be that's the female character. She's the one more likely to be aggressive in the love stuff compared to Yasuke, who is more just polite and calm and and all that.
You remember when Odyssey got a bunch of backlash for the DLC encouraging a straight relationship?
Yeah, which I get. That's why they wanted to avoid it here. I get it.
Yeah, but it's. I mean, you shouldn't have in an RPG game. It's not a good idea to have a canon relationship. I'm like, no.
That's why they have canon mode.
Yeah, make that a choice because otherwise, it's like. I mean, I've said this even when I talked about how I would do a Wonder Woman game. I'm like, yeah, make it an option if you're gonna have a romance thing, because that way it's like if you want Diane to date an Amazon, they can, but beyond the point, we're getting a little too far. But I do love, by the way, how there was legit an article when like the whole Wonder Woman game stuff happened. It was like, hey, a Wonder Woman game does exist. Assassin's Creed.
Yeah. But anyway,
that's why I played it.
Let's talk a little bit about, like I said, we had this and we had Warcraft, and I just double checked. Tomb Raider was actually 2 years afterwards, but still.
Again, those other two movies were not bad movies.
Yeah, Assassin's Creed and Warcraft were really, I enjoyed them, and yet you look at, they got trashed.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm like, that was my problem because with like Assassin's Creed, ignoring the overcomplicated plot, it basically adapts the source material pretty well.
And it does what the first Resident Evil movie did well. It's a side story. Now, granted, it's much more important here compared to Resident Evil side story.
Yeah, but it's like you don't have to worry about is this how Desmond would act because it's an original character.
Yeah, well, and that's what by that point they had already started doing the original characters. To be fair.
No, but I'm saying that's the advantage that it has because
it's not easy. You're not trying to shoehorn Ezio into it, even though it's set in that same point. They didn't try to shoehorn him into it.
Yeah, exactly. Which, okay, so the basic plot of this movie is Michael Fassbender plays a guy Callum who's like on the death penalty.
It's no different than the traditional, what a lot of the plots were. It's like, remember, the big issue with a lot of Assassin's Creed, at least the earlier point, it was less, the plot was wash, rinse, repeat, you just changed the setting.
Yeah, pretty much. And or it's like, this is the first, like, the beginning of this movie is basically, you can think about this as like the beginning of Terminator Salvation, where Marcus is like on the deathbed and he's about to, like, he signs away his life. That's kind of what that is. So we find out that like Callum, who is Michael Fassbender,
who I thought he was fine.
He was great in this. So his father is an assassin and he gets framed for killing his mother. So anyway, he becomes a criminal. He's on the death penalty. And then he dies and then is taken by Abstergo. And then this is where it gets really confusing for me, because he meets all these other guys in this facility. Are they immortal?
They're either, here's what I think. Yeah, I think they're identical grandsons.
No, because
that trope.
No, because he talks about, like, a few of them talk about like they've been here for like hundreds of years or something like that. And I'm like,
it's hard to say. It's hard to
That's the problem. This is the overcomplicate. I'm like, at least just say it's the it's the descendants. That's the this franchise gives you an easy out for that.
Right. Now wait. Now to be fair, they could. Okay, what exactly? I'll be honest. It's been a while since I've rewatched it. I'm just going off of memory. What exactly did they say? Just so I can make sure.
Because as far as I know, when he sits down and like eats lunch with the guys, one of them says that like he's been here for like, oh, he doesn't know how long he's been here. Could be hundreds of years. Could be this.
Okay, first of all, that could be sarcasm too about overdoing it, saying like, I don't know how I've been here, because there's a lot of people who say that, or like, it could be a long time I've been here, like.
Yeah, and so at first he's very like not willing to participate. In fact, they actually have to force him into like going into the Animus for the first time.
To be fair, that fits better for a movie. Let's be honest, that fits better.
Exactly. I'm not knocking that. And then it's like you go through the journey. So the assassins plot is the assassins are trying to find the apple of Eden, which holds
again that whole thing.
Yeah, more you know what's kind of funny? I'm going to show you this. The lore book has a page that's just every apple that's like.
How many apples are there? And you know, they kind of dropped that point.
Look at this.
Yeah, I see that. They kind of dropped that. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, it's like at least in Odyssey, it was like the Spear of Leonidas or something like that. And I'm like, okay, there you go. But it's like, so they want to find that apple. So he goes through, he discovers that they also have his father, and his father there, and he tells his father he's going to basically tear down the assassins. So it basically kind of turns into Renegade, kind of, in that like plot where he starts off wanting to tear down the assassins.
Right.
And then he finally goes in willingly. The main rival is like talking about how the like origin of the word assassin and stuff. He goes in. So they have this. So they have a pretty cool parkour like scene in the Spanish town, and then he does the leap of faith.
Yep, which they've been building up to, because let's be honest, that is something you would build up to.
Yeah, even when they tried it, like on the bridge, when he jumps off the bridge, they didn't call it that. They actually call it the leap of faith, and I'm like, okay, that's cool. I mean. The thing is, I'm like, how does that destroy the machine, though?
It could be. Here's something. Because they're using an older Animus, it could be a case where the newer Animuses could handle it.
Yeah. Maybe they should have explained that. That's the thing. It's like they do cool stuff, but they don't explain it.
Again, you're right. They really don't.
And then, okay. This is where the plot really goes off the rails. So as he lands, he gets a vision of like his mother, who's an assassin somehow, his father, who also was killed because the Templars go throughout the facility, killing everyone. And so he sees every single assassin, like Kenway, Ezio, all of them. And I'm like, what? How is he talking to his family?
Again, that's clearly something they were probably going to tell in the other sequel that they never did.
I mean,
I hate that. The pre-planning a trilogy, so you had to keep things vague. This is why I prefer 2-part trilogies, First one is self-contained. Then once you know you can get a trilogy, the next two lead next to each other.
Well, here's the thing. You should never go in assuming you'll get a sequel.
And that's what I'm saying. Why do you think I just cut? That's why I said a 2-part trilogy. The Matrix, Back to the Future.
No, I'm saying not even a 2-part trilogy. Put in in the story to make a movie.
No, I get that. No, what I'm saying is the first movie is always standalone. Yeah. That's why that's what I'm saying. Look at Back to the Future and the Matrix. Both of those standalone first movies. Mm-hmm. Then once they knew they were able to get a sequel, no, in the case of Back to the Future, it's reluctantly, but they still did. In the case of the Matrix, it was intentional. Once they knew they had it locked in for a trilogy, they could then make the next two separate.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm like, if you go with that, but then you get into, so it's more of that really creepy of that vision stuff. And then in the main world, he can do all the parkour stuff, which that's straight out of the game because through the bleed through, he gets all the skills from his ancestors. That's fine. I'm fine with that. Mm-hmm. So they find the apple, and then the main Templar has a gathering of the Templars, and then he goes, "Look, we have this Fall of the Assassin's Creed," and I go, "Up! He said it!
Yep.
And then he just gets killed out of nowhere. I'm like, where's the security on this? Like, you just walk up behind the guy and just stab him.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the problem. And to Robert, to your point, I didn't know they built him up in the games.
They didn't build him up strongly, but he was a game villain. He was the leader of the Templar, and then
yeah, and I'm just like that. There's not.
Again, he was a normal guy. Granted, I get it. He's a normal guy, but since when has the person carried over the traits from there? Did Desmond do that? Carry over the Ezio's traits? Did Desmond do that?
In terms of like fighting ability and stuff? Yes.
Yeah. Okay. It's been a while since I've gone through those. I've never actually fully beaten the early one.
All the games do that.
Even that's how
Layla can do assassin stuff as well.
All right, never mind that. So that is a carryover. Okay,
it is very much. Again, that's why I was fine with Cal doing this because I'm like, okay, that makes sense. And even if they didn't necessarily explain it, there's enough in there that you can like assume that's what's happening.
Yeah.
So I'm like, that's the problem. This movie has a problem differentiating from assumption to what you should actually explain.
Exactly.
And I go like the people like appearing, explain that. The bleed, you don't have to explain that.
No.
But it's one of those like scenarios where I'm like, so then he just escapes. So just let you know, he escapes and he's guarding the apple.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so honestly, it's not a bad movie, and honestly, it's not a bad Assassin's Creed movie.
No,
it could have been much better.
Again, the problem was they went into this expecting a trilogy.
Now, I will say, and I talked to Robert about this, the improvement it had. This is where it improved on the games.
Yeah.
When you see the past stuff with like Aguilar, everyone's speaking Spanish.
Yep.
Which
it took in those shadows. It took in those shadows, but they finally did it.
I would love if they I know they can't, but like retconned it, updated
DLC'd it.
Yeah, they can't. But I'm like,
oh no, that would be too costly to get even foreign actors to do it.
Yeah, I know. So I'm like, it's fine, but it's like that's something that I feel like at least should have been like an option, like Shadows does it, where you can like have that immersion mode.
Yeah, exactly. But
like,
yeah,
again, if I had to rate this movie, I would give it kind of a 7 out of 10.
Yeah.
I think.
Again, like we said, it is so meh. Again, it should have been great.
It really should have because
between this and Warcraft was the better one.
Warcraft was definitely the better game.
Yeah, it just for whatever reason didn't strike.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, you know why though? You know why? It wasn't World of Warcraft. That's why.
Mm-hmm.
Because now I followed Warcraft since the first game. I was there when it was just one game. I didn't come in afterwards like others. So I've been following it. So for me, seeing the start of the war playing out differently, yes, but still playing out. Seeing Gul'dan and all that, adding it in with some of the later lore from Warcraft 3 and everything. Seeing all of that play out and then playing, the way it was like, I loved it, but it took them it was too long in the kitchen. Came out good, but too long in the kitchen for it to matter.
Yeah, because here's the thing also, I get the feeling that like...
I think the same thing applies to Assassins.
Yeah, from an SEO standpoint, not enough people have heard of Warcraft, but they've heard of World of Warcraft. Like the World of before it adds a little bit more of like, oh, people have heard of that more.
Yep. Also, the marketing didn't help at all.
Plus, here's the thing. It may have looked to people like a knockoff Lord of the Rings, which isn't fair to it,
again,
but still.
That's the problem. Well, again, both these things, the final product actually would have been good if it came out a couple years sooner. Now, granted, it wouldn't have come out as good if it did a couple years sooner. That's the double-edged sword.
Yeah.
It's like, this is the best it could have been. You couldn't have done it sooner, but it only would have been a hit if you did it sooner.
Yeah, I know. It's like, how do you balance that? Like,
yeah, you get the conundrum, right? It's like, if they did it sooner, it would have been a train wreck.
Yeah, exactly. I would agree with you on that one.
Yep, it's like, again, Ratchet and Clank came out the same year.
Yeah, and
then when you had Insomniac directly involved.
And
yet, also, you know what else came out? You know what the only one that came out that year that did good?
What?
Let me double check if that was the only one, but Angry Birds.
Yeah, that one surprised me with how good that movie did.
Angry Birds came out and that did good.
And which is kind of funny. It's like,
you know what? It's Critical was worse than any of these movies we've talked about.
Yeah. That's the funny part about that.
It's the Minecraft syndrome.
Yeah, exactly. And then it's like, it wasn't until Sonic, I think, that like people finally, again, even with Sonic 1, where they figured out how to do a gaming movie.
Yeah, I would definitely say so. I think Sonic, and then especially once you got the Sonic 3.
Sonic 3, like, perfected it. Perfected.
And I would say, you know, another one I think is in a similar menace, the Uncharted movie.
Yeah, I don't know why people don't necessarily like it.
I mean, again, it's similar to this. It's meh.
Yeah, it's not like...
It should have been Nathan Fillion.
Yeah, exactly. Have you seen that short?
No matter how much they try to do it, he still looked too young.
Yeah, they cast someone way too young for Nathan Drake on that. I'm like, no.
I thought he had the energy.
He did, and Mark Wahlberg was great in that movie.
Way too young, though.
Yeah, Wahlberg was great in that, but it's like still way too young for Nathan Drake. I'm like, I get that you don't want to cast like an overly old guy to play Drake in his movie.
And I say Wahlberg was way too young for Sully.
Yeah, that's the thing. I get that, like, because that's an occasion where I bet they were expecting to be able to make more movies, so they felt, let's cast someone young so he can be around for all of the movies we want to do.
Now, I would say this, one that actually I still really enjoyed. I know it got trounced by some, but it still was very successful. FNAF. Five Nights at Freddy's.
Yeah, that was not bad.
That was really good, but the problem is, and it's the problem that games have had, people keep thinking it's about the kills. It's a slasher movie. No, it's about the lore.
Yeah, exactly.
It's about the lore. People wanted the lore, and they got the lore. The people, when they're expecting a slasher, were like, what's all this boring stuff?
Yeah, I'm like, because you know why? When the majority of people that haven't played the games have only seen like, the jump reactions. Yeah, they've seen the jump scares. They don't get what that is. I mean, that was more with me, but it was like I went into that because I have never played any of the games. I'm not really that interested, but the movie morbidly interested me. Yeah. So I checked it out and I was like, okay, I kind of get it. I get it.
And let's be honest, Lillard stole the show.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, exactly.
And you know what? You know how nice of a guy he is? He came to Motor City a couple years ago. He actually stayed well past the closing of the con. He waited until he got everyone he saw. So he was there for a couple hours.
Now that's
dedication. he made sure, that's how nice of a guy he is. And I have rarely seen them do that at a convention where the people will stay that long past the con's closing just so he can meet everyone. He wasn't one of those guys, okay, I'm leaving. It's like, no, he's like, hey, how's it go? Hey, how's it go? He's that much of a sweetheart. And I mean that in a definite way, a sweetheart.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, you know what? I appreciate that because there's too many like Hollywood people that like crap on their fans and stuff. And they're like, because he could have said, you know what, I'm done, I'm beyond my time and stuff. But he's like, no, because he gets that like he doesn't necessarily have a job.
Sure. I'm positive he made sure he had time. I'm positive he had to make sure he had time because if he didn't, he wouldn't have.
Yeah, but it's more like he put out the effort because it's like he gets that like you don't have a job if it's not for the fans. So you need to take care of these people.
Exactly. By the way, I think one of the 3 things that helped out with Sonic, you had a good producers involved who like the guy who redesigned the look, he's been a producer since, and he was the one that actually pushed for them to bring in make sure they got Live and Learn in 3. And told the music guy, get up off your butt and actually make music based off of the game. Stop being so high on yourself.
Well, even on that, it's like they had people working on the movie that were big fans of the game, as opposed to like Halo, where the people making it had never played the game. So
and they said, don't do it.
It's like even with like The Last of Us, Druckmann told Bella Ramsey not to play the game. She had to sneak out behind his back to play it. Now,
look, I kind of get in way why they would do that because they want to come up with their own, make it be separate. It's like it's a double-edged sword. You don't want them to ape it.
No, but here's the thing. If you're directly adapting the plot of the game, I'm sorry, you need your actors to know, to like have an idea of the source material.
That's true. Again, it's that whole double-edged sword of it. Now, I will say this. You know what a case of a video game movie that both tweaked the lore but yet adapted it very well?
What?
Detective Pikachu.
Yeah, I would say so. That was
the first one that true. Now, believe it or not, you know what? One game movie that came out beforehand that I'm surprised didn't break the curse? Rampage.
Yeah, that was actually pretty good.
That was good.
Here's the thing: no one knows it's a video game movie.
That's the downside. They thought it was like a Kong ripoff, and it's like, no, it's based on a video game, and it's one of the better rock movies.
It's like even the flying wolf and all that stuff, and I go, okay, that's actually really cool.
And I thought it was one of, but I'll say though, it did better than these at not being met.
Yeah, exactly. And again, it's one of those games where I'm like, okay, this is actually really fun. I actually enjoy that like movie pretty well.
And you have train wrecks like Monster Hunter.
Yeah. When again, they don't play the game.
And that was Anderson. Yep. But then you have interesting ones like Mortal Kombat, where it's like, that one I'm still divided on.
I like it. Then you have like the first Assassin's Creed.
We just went over that.
First Resident Evil movie where I'm like,
the original one.
The thing about it is that here's what that movie does well. It's its own original story. It's not using any of the characters, but
it's set in the world. It could have been canon.
It feels like it's taking place in that world.
Even when they mention some of the other scientists at the very end, it's just like, or they mention Birkin. That's it. Name drop.
Yeah, and it's like the way that they basically keep it open. Then you have to like. Then you get into the later movies, and the later movies got really bad. I would say the one that I think is a return to form is the Raccoon City one. That one was actually, in terms of like adapting a lot of the games, I think that one got it pretty well.
To a point, but it still wasn't good.
Yeah, and then the Netflix show sucked.
Except for what's his name? The actor, the one who passed away. He was Wesker.
Lance
Riddick. Lance Riddick.
Yeah, Lance Hendrickson.
No, Riddick.
Mm-hmm.
Lance Riddick. Yeah, he named something bad he's ever been in.
Yeah, he's always really good. So I'm like, all right.
Yeah, and then you have other bad movies like, remember the Max Payne movie?
No, I've never seen it.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
You have Marky Mark as Max.
Yep, that works.
And,
that works.
And you want to know who played Mona Sachs?
Who?
Mila Kunis.
There you go.
Not a bad actress, but horrible in choice.
Here you go.
And then, of course, you have any of the Uwe Boll movies.
The
only Uwe Boll video game movie that still I feel was a good one because of how absurd? The Postal movie. That's the only good one he did. Was the Postal one. I'm looking back over. Oh, geez. Remember the Doom movies?
I've watched all of them.
There's 2 of them, yeah.
Actually, there's 3.
There's 3? Wait, what was the third one? I know there was just 2.
Actually, I think there's 3. Hang on.
No, there's just, I'm positive there's only just 2. There's Annihilation and then the original Doom.
Oh, yeah, there's 2. Sorry, I thought of it. But the first one, the only time that ever gets to acting like Doom is the first person seeing the BFG scene. By the way, how awesome is it? Have you completed Dark Ages yet?
Yep.
The way they bring in the BFG in that, I'm like...
Or the BFC.
Big effing crossbow. And I go, oh, that's clever. Okay.
You guys remember, the BFG hadn't been made yet.
Yeah, well, of course. But I'm like, it's the way they kind of do it. And they do it like in 2016 where you get the gun. It's just a giant crossbow.
I love it.
But it's like with that. The second movie got a little bit more toward Doom. But
Doom 3 specifically, yeah.
Yeah, but the problem is it got really campy.
Yep.
And I'm like...
By the way, the guy who I just found out, the guy who directed the original Doom movie, you know what else he directed? Street Fighter Legend of Chun-Li.
Okay.
That horrid movie.
Again,
is there any reason why there are people who actually do trash on video game movies? But nowadays it's like they finally started to crack it. Unfortunately, then you have stuff like Borderlands.
Oh God, with that. Because here's the problem with Borderlands, and actually the Corridor crew summarized this perfectly. Because the fun part of one of the most iconic parts of Borderlands is finding a new gun and seeing the way it like does stuff. But it's like in the movie, they're just generic guns.
Unfortunate. And that though, but let's be honest, from what I've heard, Eli Roth's script was good. It got butchered.
Yeah, exactly.
And then Tim Miller came in and did reshoots that apparently really derailed things.
Yeah, there you go.
Tim Miller. Just because you did good with Deadpool doesn't mean you were great everywhere else.
Apparently, from what I heard, he wants to team up with Zach to do The Authority.
Okay. I mean, again, there's a lot of people who want to do The Authority, I've noticed.
Well, because if you want, a lot of people want to do that like boys style, dark and gritty superheroes, and that's the one where if you do that, no one's gonna complain.
But here's the thing, though, and here's a big question I really want to ask: do you really think if they went with the boys, the Mark Millar version of The Authority, that would attract a good audience? Compared to if they did the Warren Ellis version.
Warren Ellis is the one I think they should do. And that's the one that when they said they were doing an Authority movie, that they held up as this version. Yeah,
not the Millar version where it's like the boys. I think they're going to avoid that.
Yeah, because again, what it kind of gets to me is like, I think DC Studios wants to, I mean, they want
characters.
They could have some points that are similar. I think the parts that are similar to the boys that they'll take is like the more like mature-ish to a point that they'll take the characters. Like they're not going to do half the crap they do in the boys. Like, no, absolutely not. But it's like in terms of being like a dark, because that is a superhero team, by the way, that is built for Zack Snyder. No one's going to complain if he goes dark with those characters.
Definitely, yeah, I will agree with you on that one. But I would say, though, again, when you compare the two, it is night and day. And unfortunately, when you look at the Mark Millar version, that's the one where it's a bit of a farce.
Yeah, it's like, I've only read the Warren Ellis one, and that one is like God tier.
The Mark Millar one is the one where you had a Captain America XP assault Apollo.
Okay.
Oh, now, granted, you want to know how Midnighter gets back at him?
Assaulting him?
Oh, more than just that. He assaults him with a giant jackhammer.
What?
Yeah.
That sounds like, you know what's kind of sad?
That's a Millar thing.
That sounds like something Mark Millar would do. This is the man that wanted to do the rape of Wonder Woman.
But, okay. I get that, but by the way, what do you think about the rumor of them doing the Marvel DC crossover?
And then and all the Wonder Woman fans are like, oh no.
Again, I'm positive he won't do that. He has gotten better to compare to his worst. He has gotten better.
Yeah, here's the thing. It's like, I get that, like, it's a stupid joke, but he even said, I wasn't serious about that.
Yeah, and I do think, I don't like how people hold him like he was.
It's like, see, here's the thing. These same people hold Zach, like Zach's feet to the fire for ideas that even he rejected. It's like if you and I were writing a story, Robert, and we like said, you know, it'd be cool this, but then we're like, nah, that's really a stupid idea.
But I would say though, I think there is a slight difference. Zach, like, when brings it up though, and then you have some people act like this was a brilliant idea. Why didn't we do it? DC was dumb, and then you have both sides doing it. You have both sides saying like, "Oh, good thing he wasn't going to do, like, this was a dumb idea. Glad they got rid of him." It's like, whereas with Millar, it was a dumb interview he just brought up years ago, and people just drag it out. It's not like he brings it up recently.
No, I know, but it's like with Zach, people still hold like, like bring up he wanted to make the Amazons to quit story. It's like, oh no, he didn't want to do that. I agree. No, I agree with that. It was an idea. It's like, again, if you and I were writing a comic book story, and then we like threw out ideas like free flow, and they were like, well, this won't work because of this and this and this and this. Then that's it. That's the extent it went.
Yeah. I would have, to be fair though, I'd leave it in the behind the scenes. That's what I would do.
You could put it in like a behind the scenes featurette saying, here's what we thought of doing.
But but I'm just saying that's what I would do. Like, I would keep like the ideas we didn't do, unless it's something I felt really strongly about.
Yeah, it's like what could have been fun is if in the behind the scenes they have a slideshow. Here's what we could have done. But it's like again, people hold that to like him and Millar and like a lot of other writers, ideas that they didn't do. I'm like, what do you care if he didn't do it? Exactly.
And again, Mark is at least with Mark, he's, again, like you said, he owns up saying it was stupid. I wasn't being. It's like when Peter David suggested, let's rip out, because he was bored. He said, let's Magneto rip out Wolverine's adamantium. And then he realized, oh crap, they took me seriously. And he left by that. He left by the time they got to that. But the fact that he's like, why me?
Yeah, exactly. It's like if the idea is like rejected, or like even if because when Britt and I are writing, there are plenty of times we suggest things, but it's like, now we can't do that because it contradicts the character in this way. It contradicts certain themes. And we're like, okay, it's fine. So, it's like, it's called free flow thinking. It's like not enough of these people. This is going to sound bad, but bear with me. Not enough of these people are creative because they don't get the creative process. Because you generally, the way I start off, I just throw out ideas because you want to start the conversation going.
I same here. You do not know how many bad ideas I look back that I used to do that I came up with where I'm like, what was I thinking?
It's like every time Robert and I talk about Tom King's Wonder Woman, we talk about here's how we would fix it. It's like if we have bad ideas, we point out that wouldn't work because of this. Okay, and then I'll change my idea based upon that.
Exactly. It's like, and that's how you work it out. No one goes in thinking they have the perfect idea right off the bat. No one.
You could have a really good idea, but the idea is gonna change as it goes on because maybe that you don't know like how it's gonna work with like a budget, particularly with like movies and TV shows.
Oh, big time. That's why. That's why fan fiction is the unlimited budget. Comics are unlimited budgets.
Pretty much, because as long as you can draw it, you can pretty much do it.
Now, is it gonna? You have to have the right artist to actually articulate it well.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I say what they should do. Like, let me put it this way: ignoring the whole rights thing and all that stuff, ignoring all the hoops that they would have to jump through. It would be cool if DC could like do comics of all the rejected scripts, like Superman Lives and such.
Oh yeah. But again, you need to wonder if it's going to sell, and you put in that effort to it. You need someone who actually is interested in adapting it.
I think it would.
Would you want to see a script of the Abrams script? An adaptation of the Abrams
Out of
script where-
morbid curiosity, yeah, I kind of would.
I would too. Again, there is a market there.
Superman Lives is the one that I legit want to see.
Giant spider.
Because you get like the idea. Because here's the thing: when you watch that documentary, you realize, okay, it's not as stupid as people thought it was.
No, it wasn't. And Kevin's written good stuff. Have you seen the adaptation of his Green Hornet or his Bionic Man?
Green Hornet, by the way, is another great comic book movie. Like, wow. I thought it was pretty good.
Well, to be fair, dude, I am tainted by what Kevin did, and it was light years better.
All right, so what did he do?
Okay, first of all, he took a lot from The Mark of Zorro.
Mm-hmm.
That's the Antonio Banderas movie, where we dealt with someone else. Like there's an original Green Hornet that we followed. They won, and then they decided, I'm going to retire. Then, in the present day, his son, bit of a slacker, is not doing anything with his life, would sooner, like, as his father would say, I don't like, how are you going to win by dropping your pants and all that? But then the father gets killed by a black hornet who's come out of the woodwork, who turned out is the son of one of the Hornet's last villains. Mm-hmm. And it's all about, he then decides, I'm going to take up, Kato is his mentor, and his daughter is the new Kato.
Oh, okay.
That's where you got female Kato from, was from Kevin. And but then they have one issue, which would have been a great montage. This one issue was about him trying different outfits, like one that's more superhero, where it looks like a bug outfit, didn't work, or one where he's wearing night vision goggles. What happens? Someone turns the light on. Ah! And then finally, like, you want to upgrade? F upgrading. Let's stick with the classic.
Mm-hmm.
You know, things like that. And it was really good. I did a BTN on it a while back. It was really good. And it felt much more respectful. They took it. It was played straight.
Mm-hmm.
It was like completely straight. It was about as straight as his Daredevil run.
Okay, there you go. That's my concern, because a lot of Kevin Smith stuff, I'm like,
I mean, he can write things straight. Again, look at his Daredevil run.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
Daredevil run really played it straight. His Spider-Man Black Cat played it too straight.
Yeah, exactly. Oh,
okay, the first 3 issues were some of the best Spider-Man and Black Cat, period. The last 3 were not.
Yeah, exactly.
And then even his Bionic Man, really good.
Yeah. But I think that's a good place to leave it. So overall, again, the movie's a 7 out of 10 for Assassin's Creed. Next week is my pick, which I'm trying to think about what I want to do. What?
60s Batman?
No, I'm not doing that. No.
All right.
You can do that for your pick. That could be your pick.
All right.
But as for Comics League stuff, Super Wonder Legacy is going to be Britt and I comparing Black Canary and Green Arrow to Superman, Wonder Woman, talking about the hypocrisy of certain fandoms and stuff. And then obviously I have my Wonder Woman Q&A and stuff. And then I have my other content. All right. So, and by the way, for UTC next week, we're going to be comparing the Punisher to Red Hood and talk about who does the lethal vigilante better.
Ooh, I still say they're apples and oranges.
And we could talk about that. But anyway, so Robert, where can we find you and what have you got coming on your channel?
You can check me down, my link down below. And I've got my 550 is coming up soon. I'm shooting for Tuesday, but who knows? That's where I cover Mouse.
Mm-hmm.
I can't wait. I cannot wait to get to that.
That's going to be fun. So stay work, everyone. Remember, Lois Lane is Lois Lane. She belongs to General Zod. Zoe is the Max about for life. I will see you later. Bye-bye.